They both pushed the red button, bro.
Yeah, the same night. And within, 40 minutes? That was a moment from our first reaction listening to Meet the Grams by Kendrick Lamar. And if you guys want to see our reaction to Family Matters and The Heart Part 6, you guys can access those reactions that we did in real time on our Patreon. Check out the link in the pinned comment to access that. But going into this, a lot has transpired over the last couple of days, and we wanted to gather our thoughts to do this video and talk about everything from Family Matters to Meet the Grams to Not Like Us to The Hard Part 6. It's just been an influx of tracks, and now it's time to talk about who's won all of this, what are our thoughts on the actual bars, and just the implications of all of these songs. So we're going to be breaking down all of that in this video. If you guys want to stay tuned with everything related to this feud, make sure to smash that subscribe button if you're new and hit the notification bell not to miss another video. But let's get into this, man. I mean, when it comes to this battle itself, how do you process all this? Because we got 9 songs over the course of just over a month. Who do you think's winning all this?
I think the decision was made this weekend. After Saturday night and after I heard Not Like Us, I'm like, okay, it's officially over in my opinion. And I think Kendrick Lamar took it. I think it took it. I'll go into my reasoning and why I think he took it. When you want to look at the different angles at which you could analyze his battle at, it was never going to be a question, especially after Saturday night. And I think that my perspective and your perspective last week after getting Euphoria was that, okay, this is a great track, but Drake could top this. And then after that, when I got Family Matters after 616, I was left disappointed because then you get Meet the Grams right after, and you're sort of questioning the whole situation, and you're like, well, what was supposed to be Drake's nuke just got defused, and now he got nuked once again. And then once you think it's over, you get more missiles on that Saturday. So when I look at it from this chess move, because I feel like this was the most decisive part of this entire feud, Kendrick Lamar dominated not only on the quality of tracks, but in the chess moves as well. He diffused everything, and he came back with a counterattack. And right now, one of the biggest and most important components of this entire feud is the public perception. Right? When you see a rap battle live, the crowds usually dictate who won. The crowds right now are all on Kendrick's side, and I feel like Kendrick has won over the community's heart with the chess moves, with the quality of the music. But how do you analyze this situation, right? Because we got a lot of music in the past 5 days. We've been looking at all of it. We've been analyzing it. Where do you think Kendrick wins this?
Well, I think that Kendrick wins this battle on every single level that you look at it, starting off with the chess moves themselves. Drake never had a moment since push-ups. Even looking at Family Matters, Kendrick didn't even give him a second to breathe or a second to sort of celebrate the temporary victory because he had his fucking foot on his neck immediately, and then he doubled down on him for the second time. He back-to-backed Drake twice. So I feel like Kendrick wins in the chess moves because he dictated the pace of the battle all the way starting off with Euphoria and on. He dictated the entire tempo and pace of when these tracks were released and who sort of dominated the masses and the public perception. Now, what I find very interesting about the way that Kendrick won this as well is the fact that Kendrick defeated Drake at his own game. Drake is supposed to be the hit maker, the guy who's leading all of the charts. That's something that his fans always would have bat for, in saying that this is an aspect that nobody comes close to him for. But when you look at this battle, what's so interesting is that Euphoria is expected to debut at number 1 in the Hot 100. You have Euphoria, and you also now have Not Like Us that are taking up the top 2 spots on the Apple Music charts. You have most tracks under Kendrick Lamar's YouTube with more views than A Family Matters or The Hard Part 6 at the time of this recording. And what's even crazier is that after Meet the Grams had dropped, I feel like a lot of the Drake stans started coping, saying, well, listen, we're not really sure about this record because it doesn't have the replay value. It's not really a banger the way that Push-Ups was. But what does he do next? He follows up with Not Like Us, which is an absolute bop, an absolute fucking banger. So I feel like not only did Kendrick beat him on the more intense lyrical duels, but he also beat him in terms of putting out the best club banger that was a bop that people ended up all fucking with.
Absolutely, the entire West Coast, and I think the entire portion of North America, low-key at this point, is bumping that song. And I find it interesting because you look at the way that Kendrick Lamar played it. he covered his ass on every single front. You look at the numbers, it's in his direction. You look at the community reception, it's in his direction. You look at the writing of the songs and the way that everything looks, it's in his direction. The only time that I felt like Drake may have had a chance, if I'm being completely honest with you, was maybe that Thursday or Friday sort of time where it was like, okay, now it's time to get into 616 and now it's time to answer to Euphoria. But even at that, the responses have been pretty weak because we're going to be going through the writing and we're going to be breaking it down.
Each track, yeah.
But there's a lot of contradiction in the Drake tracks. You know, you get into the hard part 6, and at first, like in the live album reaction, I was bobbing my head, and because I love the production, and I think that Drake was rapping on it. But you're listening to the words and you're listening to the attempt with everything, and you're like, what's really going on here? Like, and I started reading the lyrics, and then we did the live stream, and I'm like, bro, this was a terrible move, low-key. This was really not the move, and I think that if he would have taken his time maybe a bit more, and that, you know, maybe more time had passed, okay, then you say that maybe it was going to be better executed. But when I look at Family Matters in the Hard Part 6, they were not executed well. And not only that, but, you know, the Kendrick chess move of having his foot on his neck and just applying pressure, forced Drake to go into a state of panic. You go listen to those records. There's a lot of lackluster within the verses itself.
I think Family Matters is a banger. We'll get more into that in a bit, but I think the hard part 6 was definitely Drake feeling the pressure and feeling like he had to rush to make a track. But going back to what you were saying about hypocrisy within these records, I feel like that's a narrative that's running rampant for both sides, in the sense of, like, for Drake, for example, on a track like the hard part 6, him rapping about, like, well, I'm the one that actually is speaking facts. Let me know when you want to pull out your receipts. But Drake, where are your receipts? So there's hypocrisy on that side. There's also some hypocrisy on Kendrick's side where, you know, on Euphoria, he was talking about, like, you think I have the time to start digging up info on you. Clearly, he ended up gathering information about Drake. So that's what's interesting, that there's hypocrisy on both sides of this battle. But what's so fascinating to me is that when you look at this battle, it all started with like that, where you had 3 people involved, right? You had Kendrick Lamar, you had Drake, and you had J. Cole. And I think the craziest part about this whole battle is that the real winner is low-key J. Cole. When you're looking at, like, everybody and how they're going to walk out of this, J. Cole does not have a scratch on him. He doesn't have a tint in the armor. He's walking off into the sunset right now, because the reality of the fact is people are changing their sentiment. They're now excited for the fall off. They want to know what Cole's perspective is going to be on all this, and they respect him for not entering into the shade room chamber and not really entertaining something that's turned into a fucking disaster class, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely.
So I feel like I have to salute J. Cole for sort of standing his ground and probably knowing, like, this is going to get a bit too deep. I don't want to be remembered for going this dark into a battle. So salute to him for that. But to give credit to both Drake and Kendrick Lamar, they really executed a battle between 2 gladiators, and they really showed that they were quick to adapt when under pressure. Kendrick more so than Drake, without a fucking doubt. But, bro, Kendrick was an absolute fucking cheetah, bro, during this battle. Like, he was so quick with the responses. He was so quick to adapt to what Drake was rapping about on the previous records. But I think that when you're looking at, well, who wins in terms of the nukes that were dropped, because that was a big conversation too. I want to ask you who you think won, because at the end of the day, there's no receipts. But that being said, I feel like if we were to believe everything at face value, there is more scathing information against Drake.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning, and I was just saying that, you know, when you look at the Drake situation, right, and, like, we've been referring it to as, like, a PDF file, right, because I feel weird fucking saying that word. Like, low-key, the content matter has made me uncomfortable, if I'm being completely
The subject matter's been weird.
Yeah, it's weird, dude. Like, it makes my skin crawl. Like, this is shit that I have trouble digesting. You know, Kendrick Lamar knew what he was doing. And to be honest with you, like, he already knew that the public made up their mind about Drake on that front before this battle even started. So it was like, well, let me explode that now. Let me add gasoline to a small little, let's say, ember that's already been burning for all these years, and let me make it an explosion. And look what happened. that was a chess move that Kendrick Lamar did, and I feel like that's low-key something that's won him this battle. He took something that people have been wanting to see come to light for so many years, and he just exploded it through the music. So regardless of like the he say, she say sort of conversation as far as that goes, Kendrick Lamar didn't even have to do anything. He just had to rap about it and make it sound catchy and had everyone repeat it. And then people are like, oh, fuck, it's true. And now you have your audience going into TikTok compilations. And now people are going onto Twitter. And people are looking everywhere and trying to take all of these pieces of the puzzle. So regardless if I think it's true or not, I think that when you look at what the community has done, Kendrick persuaded them. And he knew exactly what was going to happen with that. And all you had to say was like, well, go look yourselves. And then when people go look into it, they're like, well, fuck, this is something that I'm kind of buying into at this point.
Absolutely.
So that's the way that I feel about that situation.
And yeah, I think that especially after Not Like Us and the weak response that Drake had with the Hard Part 6, Kendrick's won the battle. I feel like the only way that we could flip the tables, and this is even a possibility, it's not even guaranteeing that people would sway over to Drake's side, is if one of them have receipts. The only way I could see Drake turning this around is if he has receipts and Kendrick doesn't. But even at that, when you're looking at just, again, the lyrical displays, the way that Kendrick was able to bring so many creative and energetic moments through his various vocal inflections, through his enunciations, through the flows he was using. When you're looking at everything besides the drama, I feel like Kendrick Lamar is on top when it comes to this battle.
So is that how you're seeing the situation at the moment, where you look at, let's say, what's been going on at the moment, and you're like, okay, I'll look at all of this gossip shit maybe later. Once there's receipts, right? Like, I'll put that to the side.
Exactly.
But let's go into the other components of this battle. Look at the chess moves, goes to Kendrick. Commercial success in beating Drake at his own game, Kendrick gets him there. You look at the quality of the tracks themselves and the actual writing and the ability to be able to interconnect them all together, Kendrick gets him there as well.
Yes.
So at what point it's like, well, Drake won this? I don't think so. I genuinely don't think so. I think the only time Drake had a chance, if you ask me, was after Euphoria or after 616.
Yep.
Where it was like, well, is there going to be something big enough to be able to say, well, this is really what matters, and now my mind's made up, right? But with that being said, do you want to start this off?
Let's start this off. Let's talk about Family Matters. So Drake ends up going out on Instagram. He puts out a little 1.5 minute track, and he's rapping over the Buried Alive interlude, which, if you guys remember, that was the song that Kendrick Lamar was featured on Drake's album Take Care. And essentially, I found it funny within that moment that he was imitating Kendrick's voice. And essentially, he ends off the song by essentially just rapping about how, Kendrick's his little homie and that he took him on tour, which was an angle that a lot of people predicted he was going to do at some point. It didn't really hit that hard for me. And, he ends it off by saying he's going to kill Drake in the battle. And then you get the 7-minute song Family Matters on YouTube. And I have to give Drake credit for this. I was waiting. I'm like, when is someone going to bring in the beauty of presentation into this battle? So I have to salute him for bringing a video into the mix. I feel like that's something I wanted to see from either side. And who knows, maybe Kendrick ends up dropping a video for Not Like Us. That would be pretty badass too. But,
that would be pretty badass.
Let's go into the track itself. Actually, an Easter egg that I picked up on. Family Matters, actually the name of a 90s sitcom that took place in Chicago, which, coincidentally enough, that's where Kendrick's family was from before they had moved to LA. But what I found really interesting is that there's an actor who played one of the main characters named Eddie Winslow on the show. And what's interesting is that that actor, his name is Darius McCrary, and in 2017, he was accused of abusing his spouse. So I'm like, is that an Easter egg? Is Drake playing into this? Because I feel like everything was intentional with this track. So that's something I picked up on.
Well, I think everything was intentional from both parties throughout the entire battle.
Absolutely.
Right? You look at the 616 in Los Angeles, you, let's say, look at Euphoria, you look at push-ups, everything had a double meaning to it. I feel like that's also been a cool component of this entire battle, is that, Kendrick more than Drake, but both of them at the same time were very intentional with the way that they chose everything from, visuals to writing to packaging, whatever the case may be. But this is my problem with this track.
Let's talk about that. Tell me about the problem.
Yeah, the problem with the track itself is that at this point in the war, at this point within the battle, you just had 2 tracks dropped on you. You had Euphoria and you had 616. It wasn't looking good for you after 616. That's when people were like, well, fuck, like you have a big hill to climb. That's what we mentioned in the live stream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you not taking the time to fully address Kendrick and start bringing in disses towards other rappers and basically making a part 2 to push-ups just kind of on steroids at this point, and with all of the nice bells and whistles with the beat switches and the catchy flows and the energy, dude, it did not land. It just genuinely did not land. Like, you're not going to convince anyone when you're still trying to address other people. I feel like what must have happened is that Drake probably noticed what had happened within Euphoria and 616, where Kendrick was making these lyrically dense songs. Euphoria was longer in runtime, and was like, how am I going to drop a 2-3 minute song about Kendrick after you just dropped 2 in my head? So maybe let's get some more content and material in there, and let me go at other people. But the problem with that is that you already addressed that. That already happened on push-ups. To be able to have to bring that back into Family Matters, I feel like was a weak move itself. Not only that, let's talk about the Day Free situation. When I went through that first portion, and I believe it was landed in the first verse, dude, I was confused as fuck. I was there, and like I was piecing it together. I was sort of shocked, and you see me in my reaction, and I'm just kind of like, what did I just listen to? Like, what's actually trying to be alluded here? And then I guess he doubled down on that after the hard part 6. So those were my major issues with this, is that if you're gonna plant a bomb, it has to be planted well, and it has to be direct and focused. I don't care about all the beat switches. I don't care about the fancy flows. I don't care how good it sounds, and I don't care about the visuals. If I'm left confused at the end of a track, and I'm going into this, and there's nothing that's able to even counter what happened on Euphoria or 616, then that's where I'm at with this.
I want to read the lyrics. I heard that one of them, little kids, might be day free. Don't make it day freeze, because if your GM is your BM, secret BD, then this is all making fucking plenty sense to me. My issue with the way that he presented the nuke, which this is obviously what his nuke was all along, you don't even sound confident. You don't even sound like you have the facts about Day Free, Whitney, and Kendrick Lamar, and the triangle that he's creating, because he's using words like, I heard that one of the kids might be Day Freeze. So again, that shows that you have a bit of a lack of confidence in the information itself. So I have to knock off points there without a doubt. And he didn't really spend too much time on it. And then in terms of, you know, the allegations of him beating on Whitney, I mean, okay, sure, there was some clever wordplay, even on the hard part 6, which we'll get into. There was clever wordplay about he presented it, and about how he was trying to, like, the whole thing of, like, when I hit you back, it'll be a lot safer, whatever it is. Clever, sure, but again, there's no receipts for that, so whatever. It is what it is. But going back to what you were saying about my biggest problem with the track, I feel like the song is still a banger. If I'm looking at this song away from the context of the battle, Drake is rapping his ass off. The lines are very clever. The production is absolutely insane, especially that second beat, where you have, like, the drill style production with the more orchestral bass sound, and then going into the third beat where you have more of a laid back tempo, and Drake picking up on this flow that was incredible.
I like it for that.
Well done performance wise, but again, in the context of this battle, the idea that you're continuing the whole Thanos mission of going after all these other guys, why are you all the way over there? Like, all the dust has settled. You're not going to get a response from Future. You're not going to get a response from, like, ASAP Rocky, most likely. We know that it was a 1v1 main event. So I feel like that was a strategy from Drake, where he's like, well, maybe I'm going to earn respect if people think, oh, wow, he's not only going at Kendrick, he's fighting 20 guys at once. Look how impressive this is that he's throwing out, he's playing the Oprah. You get a punch, you get a punch. Like, he's just fucking going all out. I feel like he tried to earn respect, but in reality,
it backfired.
It backfired because everyone's like, why are you all the way over there?
I think that was a grand chess move, again, from Metro Boomin, Future, and maybe Kendrick at this point. They probably told themselves, like, hey, how about just putting some little, like, I'm not calling them dummies, but I call them dummies, like, as far as, like, pawns, exactly. Just some, like, little targets here and there. So Drake now has to avert his attention, and then that just fully leaves Kendrick the ability to be able to walk into this and absolutely destroy, and to be able to have the better chess moves at the end of the day. Is there anything else you want to talk about as far as content matters on the song itself? Because another problem that I had, at least as far as the nuke goes, it was buried within, like, 3 long verses.
Yeah,
like like people are not going to be paying attention within that.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's like there's also filler within the song. Like, you know, I go to Delilah with all of my ice. Like, he repeated that 3 times. Like, it sounds good. It sounds fucking cool when he says it, but like, what is that doing in this track? So there's a couple of moments like that. Also, you're right about fuck the big three. It's only Big D and there's video proof. That was so fucking cringe to hear that. I'm like, why are we doing this? And then again, what was so funny was that like Kendrick literally addressed the same line in a more impactful way on Meet the Grams, which we'll get into soon. But apart from that, I'm looking through here.
There's nothing really going on with it.
There's nothing too crazy.
Like, why is Rick Ross being brought into here with bars like Ross calling me the white boy, and the shit kind of got a ring to it? Like, what does that mean? You know, like we're bad. Like, this is you against Kendrick Lamar. There should be no focus elsewhere. So I think when you look at the execution of the track, yeah, sure, there's bells and whistles on it, but if the nuke doesn't blow up, I mean, at the end of the day, what is it?
It didn't detonate, yeah.
It really didn't hit. So that happens, right? And you're like, well, okay, it's fire. I'm telling you, in all these live album, I say live album reactions because like I'm so used to saying it on the podcast. I was doing the live reactions to all these songs, and I was like, sheesh, this is hard, and I was bobbing my head. But then I go back to the lyrics, and I'm like, I'm only bobbing my head because the flows are fire and like the beat's hard.
Yeah.
But like, and the bars that I thought I caught on to off of my first listen, I'm like, ooh, is that really that good of a plant? So now you listen to Family Matters.
Also, just like a couple of more things I just noticed before we move on. Don't even go back to your hood and plant no money trees. Like, Kendrick has proven to be a philanthropist. Like, he's proven to give back to his city. He's proven to have done food drives and like donated a lot to the community. So again, it's like you're reaching for these angles that are completely fabricated, 100% fabricated. So that knocks off a lot of points for me as well within this. So again, as a battle track, like there's really not much, and I feel like a lot of what he said in this track ended up becoming a fatal flaw for him later on. For example, him saying if you had a set, they'd give your ass a DP, but you're a civilian, and then talking about how, you know, who really bang a set, YG, the game, whatever. That ended up paying to his own detriment when you listen to Not Like Us. How Kendrick's like, well, fuck all that, bro. I'm gonna make a YG-esque song with Mustard on the beat and fucking own you. And that's what he did. But more on that later.
More on that later.
Let's get to Meet the Grams. What a fucking power play to drop that. 33 minutes, something along that mark. 33 or 37.
We were in the reaction, we were in the live stream, and like Nick stops us and he's like, bro, Kendrick dropped. And I was like, what the fuck? Is that actually a thing? And I want to say this, shout out to The Alchemist. That is one of the nastiest beats I have heard this year. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Like, I go back to it and it's like, whoa. Like, this is fucking great. Our facial expressions were dead. Like, it's like, dude, like, nah, this is fucked. Kendrick Lamar just like brought it there. So Kendrick Lamar drops Meet the Grams, and as soon as he started off with the Adonis verse, I'm like, nah, this can't be going there. He really did it. He took the perspective of talking to each and every single one of his family members and giving them knowledge and how to deal with their with their family member. And do you understand how fucked that is? Do you understand how really dark and fucked that is when you really look at the face value of that track?
He turned into Hannibal Lecter, bro. Like, Kendrick turned into a fucking psychopath on this track, and I thought it was a genius play. I'm like, in terms of like song concepts, I've never seen this executed in a fucking battle before, and I literally felt possessed by Kendrick's words in the sense of like I was under his control. I was locked into every single word because of how creepy and how eerie that track was. It gave me chills. It sent chills all down my spine. And when you combine that with Alchemist's crazy manic beat with that creepy fucking keyboard loop, and also the cries in the background, it literally felt like a twisted intervention that Kendrick was having with all of Drake's closest family members. It was pure savagery on Kendrick's part.
It was disrespectful.
Bro.
It was crazy.
And the lines, the bars on this song, like, bro, he literally is telling your mother that he thinks you should die. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's some crazy shit.
Like, this is pure hatred. After I heard that, I'm like, Kendrick fucking hates this guy, bro.
No, absolutely.
Like, he wants to bury him as far down as he possibly could.
Absolutely. And then, him talking to Dennis Graham and talking about how, like, this is all your fault. Your son's a degenerate because it's you. You abandoned him. All of the bad qualities in life that you have. Then talking to his son and being like, well, you're good enough in this life. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. It's like, bro, what?
It was devastating.
It was
devastating.
And then, the whole perspective of Drake having a daughter, that's been up for debate at this point because it has not been proven as far as facts go. And, like, Drake's came out on a limb and has said that, like, hey, listen, if anyone's able to prove that my daughter is actually here and that I do have another child, I'll go work for academics and I'll quit rap.
So what happens if we find out that, I don't know, like, because it's so hard to prove or disprove, let's say this will never happen, Kendrick comes out and says, oh, by the way, it's not true, they fed me that info. Does it devalidate the track for you? Because it doesn't. It does, but it doesn't just because...
Because I think this is what happens in that moment. At this point, I think it's good that there's a fine line. I think it's good that it's in a really big gray area.
It's in a gray area.
And I'm looking at this from, like, again, a move within the battle. He put it into a gray area because regardless if it's true or not, people are going to question it. And it's going to just build discourse. And it's going to start to eat away. And it's going to start to build this entire conversation that you just don't want to have within this battle. But if Kendrick Lamar comes out and says, well, that was a lie, then you're officially saying, well, I'm planting information just to be able to sway public opinion. I'm being dishonest with my own listeners. And I feel like that's where I draw the line. But at the moment, it's like, I can't prove it, nor can I disprove it. So at this point, it's a part of what it is, and you just have to kind of take it at face value,
It would change maybe the decision making for who the winner is within the battle. That might be altered because people might say, oh, fuck, Drake has actually been Jigsaw this whole time. He's been pulling all the strings. But even at that, I'm still going to respect just the approach, bro, because I've never seen such a brutal, devastating approach as a song and as a concept of a song. Fucking genius. I want to go into some of the bars here. Even if it don't benefit your goals, do some push-ups, get some discipline. I thought that was a really cool way to flip the whole push-ups track title from Drake. Also, he starts off the song with, I look at him and wish your grandpa never would have wore a condom. That's in the first few lines of the song. He's saying he wishes Drake was never born. Like, this is so dark and so fucking extreme. It's mind-blowing to me that he took it to this place when first hearing it. Any standout bars for you before I get to some other ones?
I don't really, dude. Like, it's a mess to go through, low key. It's a really creepy song. I don't have anything on my end. Do you have anything else you wanted to highlight?
Some other stuff that I wanted to highlight. What's interesting is that I caught on to this. I don't know if other people did too, or maybe I'm imagining it in my head. But when Kendrick starts off the fourth verse and he's addressing Drake, it sounds like he's saying, "Dear Harbury." Like, it almost sounds like he's mixing Harvey Weinstein and Drake's names together. I'm like, that's so fucking savage for him to do. But yeah, man, apart from that, it was a crazy move. What I found interesting too was, hold on a second.
Okay, so this was a big turning point within the fourth verse that I found interesting. He says, "Dear Aubrey, I know you probably thinking I wanted to crash your party, but truthfully, I don't have a hating bone in my body. This is supposed to be a good exhibition within the game, but you fucked up the moment you called out my family's name off of push-ups." So it was kind of like going back, like, now you've planted maybe a seed of regret within the other side, saying that this could have been avoided. I would have spared you. We could have had a good sparring back and forth. But at the end of the day, you brought it here once again.
And I will say that, like, yes, Drake is responsible for initiating it, so you could put that blame of how dirty this got on him. But that being said, Kendrick doubled down on Euphoria. And then Drake tripled down. Like, they one-upped each other in terms of how dirty the fight got with every single fucking track that ended up dropping. An interesting line to me was this one here where he raps, and I like to understand because your house was never a home, 37, but you're showing up as a 7-year-old. I found that genius because Kendrick's truly acting like a psychologist where he's trying to rationalize Drake's behavior. So that added to me in terms of the whole therapy session motif that's running throughout the track is like, wow, he's really in that seat. He's really in that therapist role. Something else that I picked up on that I found was really clever was that Kendrick Lamar really studies Drake. When you're looking at these lyrics, you're like, holy fuck, Kendrick did his homework, bro. When you have bars like bad with money, whorehouse, soliciting women problems, therapy's a lovely start, but I suggest some ayahuasca, strip the ego from the bottom. That made me think, oh fuck, maybe he's heard Champagne Poetry and Churchill Down, songs where Drake is rapping about actually going to therapy because he's bringing it into here. Not only that, but another line, no secret handshakes with your friends. That's a direct line from Weston Road Flows. So once again, this is proving to me Kendrick knows his opponent through and through.
Absolutely, and there's also a really cool way that Kendrick also structured his lines towards the end of this verse. You lied about your accident in your past tense, all is perjury. You lied about your ghostwriters, you lied about your crew members, and then the way that he does that, that's something that you might find on, let's say, a Feel, for example. The way that Kendrick is kind of just venting, and the way that he's used that type of like rhyme structure before, and the way that he's sort of like cultivated those types of lines before, I found that was a genius way to be able to end this. And at this point in time, you look at this track, and you're just questioning everything. You're like, dude, like this is vicious. And I feel like if he would have maybe dropped this song on Thursday or Monday, it would have it would have been different. Just because maybe people would have been like, okay, but he could debunk this.
Wait, if he dropped on what day? I'm confused.
So let's say Meet the Grahams was not dropped, let's say right after, right?
Okay.
Right after Family Matters. Maybe the chess move doesn't look as smart because now Drake has more time, and now maybe there's a lot of things that he could debunk. He goes back on defense. People would have had more excuses.
Okay.
Dude, this dropped right at the time of his nuke. There was no time for anyone. There was no time to gather the troops. There was no time to drop another one on top of that. There was no time.
He really crashed his party.
Yeah, he crashed his party, and that's the way that he started this up, saying, Dear Aubrey, I know you're probably thinking I wanted to crash your party.
That's what almost made me think like maybe the idea of there being a leak, let's say, in Drake's camp is accurate just because there's lines that refer to... Is there lines that refer to Family Matters? I feel like... No, maybe that's not like us, but... Even the title track, right? Meet the Grams, that plays on a sitcom kind of vibe the same way that Family Matters does. Yeah. And again, lyrics like, sorry to crash your party. And I think there is other lyrics. I'd have to go through the whole track.
Oh, that may be a good Easter egg.
I'm pretty sure there's other lyrics that show that like maybe Kendrick knew what some of the subject matter was going to be on Family Matters itself.
Yeah, and obviously, like, you have the Meet the Fockers, like, thing that had gone on as well, like, that whole interpolation and flip going into Drake's family. So at this point in time, let's talk about that night, man, you know, because we had gone on live right after, and we were talking to the people, and I feel like it was just a dark place, dude. Kendrick just fucking, like, hailed down, and he brought just everything. Everything was brought down to that one moment, and... I remember listening to this shit and I'm like, whoa, like this is some heavy fucking content matter. This is, as much as I love the production and as much as I think it's a genius chess move, it's hard to listen to this shit.
I was honestly just stunned, bro. Like I was speechless because it left me in a state of confusion within that moment. It was like overstimulating. There was so much to fucking process that I'm like, listen, I fuck with both songs for now. I think that Kendrick obviously outplayed him. But that being said, I need to digest all this. And I feel like people caught on to that just within, like, even our own energy within the stream where we were like, yo, like, this is some serious TMZ, shade room ass shit. Like, I kind of, like, wanted to take a step back in that moment. And then my excitement picked back all the way the fuck up when you go on to the next day and you move on to Not Like Us.
Yeah, so our apologies for not being able to go on stream. We weren't at the studio for that day. We did our live coverage, obviously, on social media, as like we'll always do for you guys. But this one was very interesting, right? Because now you've shot on his party. Obviously, there's maybe a bit of like a glimpse of hope. Maybe you think like, well, fuck me.
If you planted the mole, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. There's just like all these maybes and it's like, you know, no. After this, it's like he kicked him. He kicked him while he was down. It was just like
Yeah.
it's like he kicked him while he was down because now you get the surgical track with Meet the Grams, and now it's like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna plant the banger, and now you're not gonna escape this.
This felt
You're
like
really not gonna escape this.
this felt like the victory lap. This felt like Kendrick was crip walking on Drake's grave within this battle. Because like after Meet the Grams, I'm like, okay, like Drake is like low key on life support in this battle right now, and like the more that I had listened to Not Like Us, the more that I had consumed it, I'm like, you know what? We're probably never gonna get receipts. And in terms of just like who's utilizing their angles better and who's making more out of the moment and whose records are having more of an impact, Kendrick fucking takes it, bro, because he made an absolute banger. And this felt also like the West Coast revenge. And I feel like that was another smart approach for Kendrick, is that like his whole attack here was like, I'm not only backing myself in this battle, I'm representing for the whole fucking West Coast. And it united the West Coast, and it felt like a whole movement from a whole part of the country. And it felt like an unstoppable force. And the idea that like within one day, Not Like Us had gotten more views and more listens than both Family Matters and Meet the Grams, I'm like, this is the one. This is the fucking victory
This
song.
is the knockout punch, and he knew exactly what was going to happen. It's crazy that he probably had this song already prepared before, you get into the Saturday.
But he modified stuff to make it fresh. That's what I
Absolutely.
respect. He
Yes,
adapted quickly.
absolutely.
So this was Kendrick's fourth dedicated diss track towards Drake, and it was the third track in the span of 36 hours for him, which is absolutely nuts. The song had a crazy cover art. It was a Google Maps screenshot of the embassy, Drake's Toronto mansion, and you had the symbols for modern sex offender registry, and it shows that I think there was like 13 predators in the house. So again, do we believe that angle or not? It didn't matter, just because he's poking fun at it, and people would end up running with it. So.
And that's the whole point with this song. And you know what? I want to say this, as much as it's a banger, like I haven't been bumping the song at all just because I feel uncomfortable, dude. Like
Like listening to certified pedophiles,
it's rough.
all right.
Yeah, absolutely. People are gonna run with it. Don't get me wrong. If you guys fuck with it, like you guys could bump that in the car. It's gonna go crazy in the club, whatever the case may be. But I'm here and I'm listening to this content, and it's like, dude, this is fucking twisted.
But I feel that way for like most of the songs, like after push-ups, that it's like, am I really gonna want to bump like these songs in the regular because they're so dark and they're so heavy to like digest? So I don't feel like that only applies to the song.
In the context of the rap battle, I feel like these were just fucking bombs, and they were seriously well calculated moves. But as far as my rotation goes, it's hard. It's hard for me. But anyways,
for now, I'll listen to them. But like in 3 months, it's like
Yeah.
on both sides. I don't know if I'm bumping any of those tracks.
Well, it was also a big moment for DJ Mustard as well. Just seeing DJ Mustard and seeing Kendrick Lamar uniting for this and bringing together Los Angeles and having everything kind of knock out of the park, it was such a great move to see. And, looking at the content matter, having everyone, calling OVOs in the club and whatever the case may be, you're playing Drake's game now. You're playing Drake's game now, and it's going to bleed into a whole different area. And I feel like that was the knockout punch, You thought you were down after Meet the Grams. Well, fuck you. It's over now. It's over. And if I'm being completely honest, Kendrick Lamar should end it here. Kendrick should end it here. It's over.
We'll get to that later. I want to get to that later. We still have two songs to talk about, but going into this track,
we have one song to talk about.
Yeah, I still want to say some stuff though about this track without a doubt. But Mustard's production, the keyboard loop, it really took you back to like 2014. I love the crazy bounce coming from the drums and bass as well. It was absolutely fire. And then Kendrick, bro, he was using these flows that reminded me of E40, but also reminded me of Drake Yo the Ruler, who coincidentally enough has a song called Boogeyman where you could hear similar flows. But his delivery was so dynamic. It was so entertaining. But there's some bars that I want to go into. For example, I'm finna pass on this body. I'm John Stockton. John Stockton is the NBA player with the most assists in league history, and he was known for playing alongside Karl Malone, who apparently, well, not apparently, he factually impregnated a 13-year-old girl. So I found that was really clever as just a little bit of wordplay. But the bar that made me like really jump out of my seat the most was you trying to strike a chord like A minor. And the reason why I absolutely loved it is because there's so much at play here. So obviously the double entendre being that, you know, a minor in terms of someone who's underage, but also a minor, which is a chord in terms of music theory. But what's interesting is that a minor is a chord that's made up of 3 notes on the piano. It's made up of the A note, the C note, and the E note, and those are all white keys. And there's the whole narrative of Kendrick playing on the colorism, right? What's also interesting, though, is that when you put those letters together, A, C, E, that is a term that's often referred to in psychology, and it stands for adverse childhood experience, which could include sexual abuse. So when I'm looking at how layered a bar like that was and the fact that Kendrick is singing it in the key that is on the minor scale, I'm like, this is fucking genius. So in terms of like the hip hop nerd in me who like geeks out over bars, this was the song for me because there was a lot of moments like that on Not Like Us, apart from it being a fucking bop in itself.
Absolutely. Also, if you want to go verse 3, it's also kind of like poking at the fact that, you know, he should have maybe followed in Cole's footsteps. Said, did Cole foul? I don't know why you still pretending. Maybe alluding to the fact that, like, why didn't you just follow in Cole's footsteps and just back out and know your place in this situation? Why did you bring it here? That's the way that I had kind of interpreted, and that's what I had read off of the Genius annotation.
I interpret it as him being like, why are you calling out Cole in your songs when like he's your man's, you know? Like, why are you saying that I'm not like Cole, I'm different, I'm ready to go to war? That's how I interpreted that. Like, why are you kind of like throwing a bit of shade at Cole? I don't know. That's how I interpreted it, at least. But what was interesting about this song is that Kendrick Lamar, even though, again, we'll get into this after speaking about the Hard Part 6, even though he doesn't have to do anything, it feels like right now, he's mentioning on this song bars like rabbit hole is deep, I can go farther, I promise. And the whole idea of like 1 stock, 2 stock, 3 stock, 4 stock, he's pretty much teasing that like he has a whole fucking double album worth of diss tracks to go at Drake if it needs to go there. So maybe we see more, I don't know. But something else that I had to mention. Ain't that something? B-Rad stands for bitch and you Malibu Most Wanted. I don't know if you picked up on this, but Malibu's Most Wanted is a movie that came out in the 2000s. Main character's name was Brad Gluckman, and in the movie, this guy goes as B-Rad and he tries to become a rapper, and he's a white guy who sort of like changes his voice and tries to like code switch and sort of, I guess you could say in some ways, exploit the culture in different ways. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of ties to Drake because the character is also Jewish, and I'm like, it's crazy that he's pulling these cultural references and trying to apply them to this situation. So just another nod there for Kendrick that I wanted to mention.
So, how did you feel at this point in time? After the Saturday, did you think it was done like I did?
Yeah, honestly, I'm like, is it done? I was a bit unsure. I'm like, there's still a chance. Maybe Drake pulls out receipts. I wasn't positive yet because I'm like, maybe Drake's going to pull an Uno card. Maybe he's going to come back with another track and drop a real nuke. I wasn't totally convinced, but the more that I listened to it, I'm like, okay, I'm getting the picture now. Kendrick took this. And then especially after getting the Hard Part 6, I'm like, if Kendrick didn't bury the grave, Drake buried his own right now.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up feeling.
So let's go into yesterday night. Very interesting night. We were actually on the way to the studio to record this episode. So this episode may have released today without the Hard Part 6. On the way to the studio, we get the text that Drake dropped. And we ended up doing the full live reaction on Patreon. My initial thoughts within the first listen, I was going through it and I heard that beat. First of all, I love the beat. I think it was an incredible production. Everything aside, let's say, from the actual song and writing itself, production was great. You guys could see me in the reaction. I'm nodding my head, and then at a certain point, I just kind of stop because I just kind of realized, like, the fuck is this? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Realistically, like, there's not a single thing in this diss track that did anything. The only thing I guess you could say that's kind of well played out is that Kendrick Lamar can never drop the Hard Part 6 ever again. And that series is maybe shut, depending on the way that he decides to maybe interpolate that.
He could maybe title it like VI in the Roman numerals to sort of give it like, but again, it's going to be perceived like it's always going to be attached to the Drake song from now on. So I see what you're saying with that.
Yeah, dude. Like when you go into the writing of this track, it's really not great.
Let's find somewhere to start. Let me see here. We plotted for a week and then we fed you the information. A daughter that's 11 years old. I bet he takes it. We thought about giving a fake name or a destination, but you so thirsty, you not concerned with investigation. So Drake is claiming that he did plant all of this info to, throw Kendrick for a loop. But ultimately, like, if that's the case, why not prove the point? Why not show receipts of like a conversation between the guy who you made out to be the leaker talking to Kendrick's camp? Like, why not like show any proof of that? It almost felt to me like, well, maybe this is a narrative that people ran with online, and Drake's like, oh, that's it. We're gonna use this now.
Yeah.
That being said, there was also some rumors of like, well, they found the girl on IG, and then in the video of Family Matters, you see the girl on the wall. But we're like, we never know if Kendrick claimed that girl on Twitter that was going viral is even the same one that he's addressing.
The
like,
problem with it, yeah, it's very confusing because you're forced to have to try to put these dots together that low-key don't make sense.
yeah.
Regardless of what it is, like you just don't understand what's going on. My biggest problem with this was you start to get into the Mr. Morale stuff and the Mother I Sober sort of conversation and the writing itself, and I'm like, no, this is not prepared. Because at the end of the day, you didn't even know what's going on with it. And then, you go, Mom came over today and was like, Mother I, Mother I, Mother I. Oh, wait a second. That's one record where you say you got
molested.
Oh, fuck me. I just made the connection. This is about to get so depressing. This is trauma for your own confessions. This is when your father leave you alone with no protection, so neglected. That's why these
PDF file raps.
Exactly, is shit you obsessed with. So excessive. They acting like it's so aggressive. I'm like, dude.
Touch My Body by Mariah Carey play, you probably start reflecting. Yeah, that's where I'm like, this is a little bit distasteful. And the worst part of it all is like the same way that I said earlier in this video that you could tell Kendrick has studied his opponent. I feel like Drake hasn't really studied Kendrick that well because he's reaching with his take. If you go back to Mother I Sober, yes, Kendrick mentions that people in his family were abused and assaulted, but he specifically makes it clear. He draws a line in the sand. People around me were questioning me, saying, did I get touched or abused or whatever the case may be? And he says, no, I wasn't. He makes that very clear. He states that he wasn't molested. So why is that? Why are you reaching for that? It reeked of desperation in terms of an angle to me. And then it was distasteful also to people who have been victims of this kind of stuff, I feel like. And then my big thing with the track is that like it just felt like a big PR move where it's like, I get it. I think it was cool that he did address it because they are serious allegations of him being a PDF file, let's say. But that being said, you're dedicating a lot of bars to it.
Yeah, and this too, the way that he was trying to defend himself, in my opinion, it just didn't make sense. If I was fucking young girls, I promise I'd been arrested. I'm way too famous for the shit that you suggested. So are you alluding to the fact that people would have caught you already? Because, like, your life is so exposed?
P. Diddy? Did that not teach us anything? Like
R. Kelly?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Like, that's...
Again, like it's irrelevant what's true and what's not when it comes to that allegation. It's more so the fact that, like, the defense mechanisms aren't effective. That's really the bottom line. And then what also made me say, well, now it just seems like he's not into this anymore is the fact that, like, he said something along the lines, I want to find it exactly, but something along the lines of, like, I don't even want to diss you anymore.
Yeah. There was also a line where he says, I don't want to fight with a woman beater. It feeds your nature.
So it's like, to me, that sounded like, okay, I'm bowing out. This is my last track, which is like, you're really going to say that even though this is not a track that's going to put you above Kendrick? That didn't really make the most sense to me.
Yeah. Another thing, I don't understand why these people praise you, sounding like you sent him commissionary when he needs some paper. So
Is it commissary or is
commissary, excuse me. Yeah,
Yeah.
my bad. I was reading the annotation wrong. On this part of the song, I was kind of like, well, what are we doing here? Like, what's really the motive of this verse?
And then also like the whole idea of Whitney following Day Free and not Kendrick, that was a huge Twitter narrative. So now it's like on the song where you were imitating Kendrick for the Buried Alive shit, you were talking about how he was running with Twitter narratives and making Twitter ghostwrite his stuff. You're proving to do exactly that on this track. So
Yeah.
this was easily the weakest entry out of this entire battle. Easily.
Yeah, it's
Easily the weakest
it's tough.
entry.
There's reaches. There's contradiction. It legitimately did nothing to stop Not Like Us and Meet the Grahams. Like, there's just nothing going on here. I feel like the reason why this track released is probably because of the amount of pressure that Kendrick put on this weekend. As like one maybe try and swing, no, there's nothing here. There's nothing here that even makes remotely a bit of sense for this situation. And that's why, going back to the point I was trying to make before, Lou, I don't think you should answer anymore. I think it's over.
I don't think anyone should answer.
Yeah, I think it should end right here. This was the perfect display. I think Kendrick's victory lap is Not Like Us.
It is.
He took the victory lap before the game was even over just to fuck with him.
Yeah,
But
so
it's because obviously Drake was not going to be able to go without those songs being untouched. But just as a whole, when you really debunk this and you go into the writing of everything and you look at the chess moves and whatever the case may be, Kendrick has won in every single situation.
and it's so funny because it's almost like they had reversed roles where people on Drake's side were saying, well, Kendrick can make a diss track that's a banger. And then he does it. And then people like myself was saying, well, I want to hear timestamp Drizzy. I didn't really get that in this battle. Maybe that can sort of give him some points in this thing. And then he does it, but the execution is so poor. So it's like Kendrick was able to play Drake's game, but Drake wasn't able to play Kendrick's game. That's what I found very interesting as well. Now the question becomes is that for us and for a lot of people that are witnessing this battle, first of all, this is fucking history in the making. Like, I'm blessed, and I think I could speak for you too.
Yeah,
you
course.
feel blessed to have been able to cover this and be a part of this moment with our community. Definitely the greatest rap battle that I've ever witnessed in my time. That being said, it feels like to us and to a lot of people the dust has settled and that it's all over. But that's the big looming question right now is what's to come next? Because people are expecting to see maybe receipts surface in the coming days or coming weeks. People are expecting maybe Kendrick to continue to bury Drake even deeper because that's been a narrative too where it's like Kendrick fucking hates this guy and like wants to destroy him like to bits and pieces. So that's a possibility. Maybe Drake feels, okay, you know what? The Hard Part 6 wasn't enough. I've lost everyone. Let me make a banger and like try to get people back on my side. There's a lot of possibilities for how this could play out. So before we wrap up the episode, let me ask you, what do you see going down?
Oh, it's hard. It's really hard to say because one part of me is telling me that Kendrick Lamar might be dropping a song. The other part of me is telling me that I think it's over at this point.
Punch from TDE tweeted, battle over. Is he saying that like Kendrick won or is he saying there's no more tracks to come?
I think Kendrick knows he won, though.
Yeah.
Again, when you look at it from every single angle, even if you want to exclude all of the information that's supposed to be getting them in a different situation, Kendrick Lamar has won. Kendrick Lamar,
has.
the tracks are better. The public perception's on his side. He's playing Drake's game with the numbers. What do you want to do?
As I said, real winner is J. Cole, and funny enough, that was our prediction. We did it. We did a video early on where we're like, "Who's gonna win this battle?" After like that, and we said J. Cole. What do you know?
Some way, but I think that I respect J. Cole for what he did because obviously when you look at it from the real battle standpoint, you can't say he won just because
no,
obviously,
not from the battle standpoint.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
I just want to make that.
Like,
Yes, I just want to make that.
You don't have to make that clear. I think that's obvious that it's like
Yeah.
when it comes to the battle, Kendrick wins. But when it comes to just like moving forward and going beyond this situation, J. Cole is the most unscathed here. That's the reality of it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Kendrick Lamar looks like the person that slayed the dragon. J. Cole is the person that was able to walk away from this situation. And
Both
yes,
rappers are going to have to fight these allegations. It's probably going to stick with them to a certain degree.
Absolutely. But that's it. Like that's what I don't want to see happen. Is just like the receipts game and like that whole shit. It's
Mm.
just gonna get, it's gonna get dirty. But listen, guys, let us know how you feel about the situation down in the comments. Let us know where Lou and I got it right. Let us know where we got it wrong. And guys, listen, if this is kind of the end, we really appreciate you guys for staying with us throughout this entire battle. This has been close to 2 months in the making at this point. So it finally comes to a halt. We finally have a winner. And at the end of the day, it was just a pleasure to be able to witness this in lifetime. You guys witnessed history. We witnessed history. And I think the entire world has witnessed history. So much love to everyone. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.